Hello, my name is Angel Stuckey, also known as Angel Long. I am doing this video on behalf of the discovery, findings, and safety and safe return of my two children, Destiny JEMIMAH-ANGEL Stuckey, also known as Des for a nickname, as well as my son, Jeremiah Solomon-ANGELO Stuckey, who is also known as Solly. My case has been extensive. It stems from Athens, Georgia, right here in the United States. Our country is under attack with a multitude of stolen children within our political system, our government system. Not to bash the government, because all are not unintegral, but there is a lot of conspiracy as well as what they call conflict of interest. Family groups who are hired within the government that work under the table, trade dollars, trade children, mess up people's lives vindictively because of the color of their skin, because of their nation of people, the culture, and the stereotypes. The stereotyping must be to a close. This is unnecessary, and this video is to draw all attention to everyone out there. I am a now civil rights officer. I monitor the public. I keep an observation and close notes as to what type of activities are going on within our country. My two children and I were traveling after Hurricane Matthew in 2016. And we traveled to Athens because there was a housing option. There was also another opportunity, and which was more permanent and more stable, in Santa Monica, California. I was included in Section 8. And with Hurricane Matthew, us already being the next 50 applicants to receive our voucher, I would have moved in immediately, right away, due to the natural disaster. In Athens, there was Bethel Midtown Village, a property in which I lived at a previous time. And when I got into the city, there was a phone call made saying that there's no reason for me to contact them again, from a Caucasian woman whom I had never spoken to. She had claimed to be the manager of this particular entity, and no one knew why she called or who it was or could describe it to me. No one said a word. Not even the black woman who worked there. She tried to help, but she had also made a mention that there was Child Protective Services illegal allegations against her family members, and she was in a situation personally herself. And so from there, Katie Wheeler, the Educational School Board representative, who was also a social worker and a liaison for people who have homelessness. When I walked into the Educational School Board, I saw Katie Wheeler there. She had scrutinized me, asked me about a number of quick questions, probably all of 8 to 10 quick questions. I felt bombarded. I knew that the woman had no interest in me. She was just discovering some information for someone else. Now, I never told that woman that I would be there. I told her I was inquiring about the school system because we had some leisure time on our hands. We had time before our departure, and I had time to make a decision where I wanted to live, and that was no business of anyone else's anywhere in this world but mine, for my children and for myself, because I'm the ruler over my family, and I make those decisions. Now, I'm going to have some detailed videos about everything which took place, but I want to give you a synopsis about what is going on right now, just a short briefing, if you will, about what's happening from here. Now, Athens is responsible for stealing my children from me in the St. Mary's Hospital. St. Mary's Hospital of Athens, Georgia. About 10 employees snatched my children. They conspired together. There is no evidence of any type of awful behavior, mental illness or any type of abuse or neglect to my children. They just stole them from me. And so since then, I have been under severe conditions of depression, right? Up until recently. Right now, it's more so agony, and I'm in military mode to rescue my children. I'm very adamant about that, and I'm pursuing full-fledged this time with no relentlessness. I'm going all the way. I will not hold off. Now, my children were stolen. They gave me the allegations 2 days later, said that there was a concern for mental illness and also neglect. At the hospital, there was a officer, well, not an officer, well, it was a CPS officer who had a medical doctor, Dr. Brandon Hicks, to interview me. And he declared to Eric Langford, the CPS investigator that night, that he could not declare mental illness over my life. And at that point, they should have released my children to me. But they had not. They continued on with their shenanigans and their conspiracy to overindulge themselves in my personal affairs that had nothing to do with them. And all of my rights were broken that night. When I looked at the police report, they stated that I was speaking in tongues. Now, tongues is a language. It's not a religious act entirely. It is when the Holy Spirit compels you and causes you to speak in an unknown language other than the norm. All right? There's hundreds of people, billions of people, trillions of people around this nation that has that affiliation with God and that method of lifestyle, right? And it's not abnormal, obviously, because they could actually write it down what it was. If they could identify it, then therefore it was not abnormal. Okay? That is my religious right. And at the time that I did that, I was outside of the hospital, and I had asked for a brief moment to pray because I felt that something was going on there at the hospital. By no coincidence did a lady just run out of the hospital when we pulled up to the hospital, myself and an African American woman named Miss Cat. And she ran up to my children immediately and said, "Oh, I just wanted to make sure your children were accompanied by an adult." 9 to 10 o'clock at night, of course they are. And we're looking at her like, what the heck was that? It was obvious from that to the security officer. It was obvious that this security officer and this lady from the front desk were prying into my personal affairs unnecessarily. I would also like to make a mention that I received a call on my cell phone from an odd person named Elise, who stated that they received the call saying that myself and my children were in need of a shelter. And I told her that that's not true. I bet you that Katie Willard called you and told you that, because nobody here in the city has my phone number but her. And it was obvious that my phone was tapped as well. At least that's what I can assume by some things that I noticed, which was going on with my telephone and how they was tracking me and able to know all of my footsteps. But regardless of the fact, I didn't have anything to hide. I was at the Howard Johnson Hotel for about 2 to 3 days with my children. And I have proof of that online. As you can see, the website, www.savesollyanddes.webador, webador.com. There's evidence and proof that I was in the hotel. And I have that right to do it. This is obvious that this was done to me because I am what they call black. And so that is a sign of prejudice and hatred. It is also a sign of slavery, because you cannot override a person's human rights. You cannot override their religious rights. You cannot override their parental rights. I also like to make a mention that my children were taken in the back of the hospital for over 5.5 hours before they concluded the matter and told me that I couldn't get my children that night. My children are supposed to be supervised by an adult. They were 4 and 7 years old at the time. And so that's illegal. illegal process, no due processing of law, no evidence, no findings, just let's take her in. Let's take the children from her. Apparently, it was told to me that a judge made the decision, Judge Robin Shearer. She's no longer the judge now. She's actually a lawyer in the city. But apparently she made the decision. This is what they told me. I honestly believe that it was not the judge. I believe that she was on hold to further notice. I believe that someone else, Katie Wheeler, was called, and some other people were trying to make a decision before the judge could be reached. That's truly what I believe, instinct-wise. And that is also illegal. There was no abuse, no bruises, no marks, no nothing, no sexual assault, no type of abuse whatsoever, no neglect to my children. I was only asked a few questions that night, such as, what did your children eat? But I'll go in the proper order. Where did you come from? Virginia. Where are you going to? That's none of your business. What did your children eat? They ate at the hotel for breakfast. At lunchtime, we ate at the supermarket where they had the buffet. And they had also a snack from Chick-fil-A, cookies. They also ate McDonald's. They also ate the snacks that I brought them to the hospital, drink and snacks, cookies and drinks, you know. So he also asked me, where did I feel that my children was afraid of me? And I said, no. I said, why did you ask me that? Did they tell you that? And he said, no. I said, well, if they didn't tell you, then you shouldn't ask me that. You shouldn't assume unless they told you that they was afraid of me. And regardless of the fact, what child is not afraid of their parent? They should have a reverential fear for their parent if they really love them. But nonetheless, that's what was asked to me. Dr. Hicks came and asked me, Dr. Brandon Hicks, he came and asked me some questions about my investigation. Questions in investigation form. We only spoke for a few minutes. He got up and walked in and told them that there's no mental illness in this black woman. That's what he said. And that was testified on December 2nd of 2016 by Eric Langford. And so I concluded, I got it now. I'm going to go ahead and ask for an appeal through my attorney Charles McRae, because we have proof now, and it's on paper, that he did not declare mental illness on my life. And so that's where I had to be discharged. But to be honest with you, it should have been concluded from the night at the hospital when they had no evidence. Number two, it should have been concluded at the conclusion of the December 2nd hearing, after that testimony come forth. Number three, it should have been concluded when it was discovered that I had a right to an appeal with the evidence that was presented in court. Number four, I complied with the case plan, although I knew that this was an unrighteousness on their part and an unlawful, unconstitutional behavior on their part. The breakage of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, U.S. Constitution. All right? No due process of law, no evidence, no investigation findings. You can't just walk up to a family and decide to pick with them and take them into custody because you feel like it, or someone is gathering some information to make it look like, or conspiring together to do something like that. That is not a lawful thing. So after I complied with the case plan, which actually came in, actually, let me go back. I want to say to you that I was not allowed a preliminary hearing, which is unlawful. That's only for criminals who have a federal investigation. These are for felonies that do not have a right to a preliminary hearing. They're the only ones that are subject to not having a preliminary hearing. The petition was also submitted on October 15th. The incident happened on October 25th. The petition was handed in. October 25th, 2016. The petition was handed in by Catherine Angela Pope, the Attorney General Assistant, all right, to Christopher Carr, who is the Attorney General for Atlanta, Georgia, all right. The petition was sent in on October 25th, 2016. That was the same thing that they had sent me to do a mental health evaluation at Positive Outcomes the very same day. That was also in Athens, Georgia. Now, according to the law, the petition can only be submitted at that time. In 2016, there was a court process for 3 days for a petition, 5 days with an extension by a judge. 10 days would have been already concluded late. The allegations of paranoia, schizophrenia, a diagnosis for mental illness in a petition is also a serious fault, because that is an accusation. It is not a fact. You're only supposed to enter in facts in a petition, not an allegation, not a hearsay, not none of that. You're supposed to only enter into investigative facts. There was no neglect mentioned or described in this petition. There's only manipulation. I would also like to make a mention that the case plan was not decided upon the Department of Social Welfare. It was decided upon a lady named Tracy, who was from a third-party agency, and she was in communication with Aisha Wilson, who was my caseworker supervisor. And Aisha was fighting for me for 6 months on my plan due to the nature of why they felt the need to bring me in. She also knew the reason, that there was no reason, that they just alleged to bring me in to investigate, which is also an illegal process. So Tracy said 12 months. Aisha said 6 months. Tracy said 12 months. Aisha said 9 months. Tracy said 12 months, and battled with the caseworker who works in Child Protective Services on the number of months, and she was Caucasian, this lady named Tracy. She made a decision for the courts, and that is also illegal. It is obvious that Tracy is close in connection with them, that they gave her a legal right to do so beyond the law. That is also no due process of law. It is injustice. The case plan was handed to me about 6 months later in April of 2017. And in spite of that delay, I finished the case plan with my own money, my own resources, within the time frame. I was done by October 2017. So I had to go through parental classes, anger management classes. I took those twice. The first ones were court approved, but I did them online. The judge made a nonsense out of it and stated that she wanted me to do them in class, but that was not specified within the court case plan. So I went ahead and did it again, flew up to Atlanta, and I paid my own money for my flight. I paid my own money for my classes. I got my test results, my certificate, and I sent it to the judge. I also had work in place. I had a couple of jobs, I believe, at the same time. And also my spouse at the time, Stephen Long, he was actually also working as well. And another thing that I like to make a mention of is that there was an implemented part that was not a prerequisite in the case plan, which was for emotional therapy. It was only stated that the therapy was only necessary if it had been recommended by a physician. Well, by that time, it had not been recommended by a physician. And when I received my results from the Positive Outcomes, which stated that I was faking it good, and also quoted and unquoted the word delusion, dimension, when I was describing the brilliance of one of my sons, you know, I guess to point out that something was medically wrong with me by using that descriptive word. But I aced my test, and they probably was very shocked at how educated I was. But nonetheless, trying to get back to the point where I was. The emotional therapy was implemented after I had already concluded the case plan. they tried to throw in emotional therapy now to overextend my court proceedings and add for additional information to my case by doing further investigations. They started contacting people that I know and asking all kinds of questions to them. I'm talking about as far as school teachers, people that they thought I know, family members. It was just on and on. People who were giving me services. They sabotaged me because they had stated to me that they wanted me to conclude with emotional therapy. So I went for it. I asked, how many sessions do you need? What's the requirements? And so she said about 3. So I went ahead for 3. And I had to keep switching the worker because every time I had released permission to the caseworker, she would go ahead and sabotage me in the background of things, and they would dismiss me from their services. Don't know what she said to have that to happen, but that's what was going on. So that became a mess as far as the emotional therapy, but I did conclude my sessions, need I say. And so regardless of that fact, the ICPC finally went through. They sent a form to me from Texas State, from the ICPC unit, and someone named Jared, who I discovered was a cousin of the judge. All right, I realized that the judge actually has some roots in Virginia Beach, okay, which is also a place where I used to live. And it's also the place where the lady Judge Rawls is, the one that stole my child from me illegally when jurisdiction was in Georgia State, and I had a full document from an African American judge that released me to relocate. I had done everything according to the law. His father was not paying child support, and I had a complete discharge. And as a matter of fact, I went to the judge that is dealing with the court case here with my children, or previously was, and went to meet with her in person and asked her, what do I do about this? You know, this judge has just ripped my son from my home. And she said, there's nothing that I can do. But there was something that she could do. She could have took the court paper from Norfolk, Virginia, and submitted it into court file. It needed to be registered with the court where I was residing. And that's where this judge did not assist me according to the laws and the rules in the law book. But anyway, as you can see, this is a big mess. But I would like to give you the rest of this general information. And we're talking about 5 years and 7 months worth. Once I finish with that, I'm going to tell you what's going on with my children and myself at this time, which is not so good. It's not a happy moment, but it is a hopeful one. And I'm full of faith as best as I know how. But anyway, so the ICPC went in, and Rachel Corman and Nikita Copeland were handling it at that time. I kept fighting with them and asking them, what is taking so long with the ICPC? I've already finished. What is taking so long? So finally they went through it, and they started communicating with Texas State, as I stated. And they sent me the application. I filled it out. I sent it back. And I concluded that with them, but they stated that they didn't have an application for me. And they also stated that they were not able to communicate with Georgia any further because Georgia stopped communicating with them. And so the ICPC was supposed to be concluded, especially after Jared came and inspected my property. He inspected my property, and my property passed the inspection. Everything was in proper place. And so there was no need for my children to not come home. It went from that to Rachel Corman asking me for special permission. She asked me for special permission to speak to my landlord. And the landlord spoke to her, and I don't know what they said to each other, but I know that that very same week, I was not able to make my rental payment. And I was very shocked about that. I asked them what was the reason for it, and they told me that the reason for it is because we just don't know. I have it on tape record, even still now, audio. We just don't know. They said the same thing in court. We just don't know. We don't know why. So I got falsely evicted from my property. And that was hurtful. I went to Georgia. I would like to make a mention that at that time, the judge was putting it in the paperwork that it would be better if I went to Georgia. Now, she's talking about like 3 years, 6 months later to suggest that I should go to Georgia when I've already made permanency in the city of Plano, Texas. I'm hurt because I know that the people were manipulating me. They thought that I was young and that I didn't have anybody and that I was ruthless, but I did not have the go forth, the drive or the pursuing of having them incarcerated for what they were doing. I'm not really sure if my phones was tapped at that time, but based on how they was behaving towards me, I can conclude that it's likely, because there's no explanation for their behaviors. So they went ahead and ordered for me to go to a final trial hearing. They did not give me proper subpoena. My husband, my second husband, and I, Brandon Johnson, we were in the vehicle, and I said, honey, you know, the Lord is telling me that I need to go ahead and call this caseworker and ask her questions about how she feels about my visits with my children. So he said, okay. So we put the car radio on and the speaker system and asked her. She said she had no problem with the visits, that she's never heard anything wrong. Everything's been pretty good. And that was it. But at this final trial, after my first attorney was confronted by the second attorney, Charles McRae was confronted by James Rogers about the reason why he never put in at least 13 appeals that I requested from him, 13 or 14 or 15 appeals. And Attorney McRae tells everyone on that Zoom call that he didn't know how to do it, and that was his reason. This was clearly no fault of my own, but at the state of Georgia for all this mess. I want to make a mention to you, percentage-wise, there was 0.5% of blacks involved and the rest were Caucasian, if you catch my drift, or white, however you want to say it. They terminated my parental rights in a form of, but they never terminated my parental rights. I still have my parental rights to my children, and they have refused to communicate with me. They also refused to allow family members, friends, to take temporary custody or adopt throughout the entire case. I also have a son who is 23 who was willing to adopt and wanted to know what to do, and they pushed us away and changed the caseworker so that that would not be done. And they also told the foster care parent that he needed to be 25 to adopt, and that's what they told them, but they lied. I found out the research myself. He could have been 18 to 21 years old. He's part-time military and works a full-time job, has his own home that he's financing. Okay, A1 credit score. He's doing well for himself. And they refused to allow him, a cousin, my sister, to adopt my children or to have a temporary custody. It was never necessary for adoption, by the way. I only wanted a temporary custody until I could file a lawsuit and open up the case that way. But the case took a turn at the conclusion of them falsifying information for termination of parental rights. I got a call from Attorney Rogers, James Rogers, to say that he's putting forth an appellate briefing at my request to appeal. And I told him to allow me to review the appellate briefing before he sent it in. And he never did. He sent it in and disregarded my request. It was a bunch of hearsay. All of the facts. Changing up from document to document. They marred my character. They distorted the information. Even the film, the recording in the St. Mary's Hospital, after I requested it right off the bat, they sent the film to me 19 months later after they changed the information in the film. They manipulated the film and sent it to me 19 months later. Still, no penalties on these people for what they've done. And the film doesn't even add up to their own documents. That's another thing. And the film doesn't add up to the police report. They have it, the film is completely changed around. It's in the daylight when it was happened at the night. They have a population of people in the, there was nobody in there, no witnesses. It was completely empty, an empty hall. 9 months later, the appellate court decides that they don't rule in my favor. And I get email from the attorney saying that this decision was made. I said, how long do I have to respond? He said, as soon as possible. They're only going to give you a matter of time. So he did not properly inform me, because I actually found out that I could have asked for an extension, especially based on the fact that I did not have a certified copy of myself to my home address or to my P.O. box. Never had. I ordered it myself once I found out what I needed to do. And a guy named, I hope I can remember his name. It's on the website, but you'll see the proof. He was the one who sent the certified copy to me. I had to pay $30 online for it. But regardless of the fact, I responded exactly at the same time that I was given originally, without really having any evidence of what was going on for myself, my own proof. I have a FedEx receipt. I also sent the second package at the response of the deputy there, of the appellate court in Georgia. And they sent the paperwork back and said that I was out of the time frames. And that's where the case pretty much became at a stall. Now, I have gotten a lot of consultation and support from some civil rights groups. And right now, we're about to pull the plug on a lot of issues and confront the world about what has happened with me. But right now, speaking about our United States country, we want to expose it to you, the public, so that you can get the word out. Now, I'm going to explain to you what's going on now with my son and my daughter. Right now, there has been a change of monitoring, support, guardianship of my children. They gave my children over to my first husband, Stephen Long. He felt guilty and contacted my second spouse, Brandon Johnson. I'm not with either one of them. I left them for the right reasons. Promiscuity, drugs, alcohol, sex, abandonment. I was a chief apostle at the time that I left Brandon, and I lost my entire ministry. I lost my business to a degree, and my credibility was declining. So I left him. He was distorted, and I noticed that he was unstable, but he posed to be someone different. He presented himself as well-groomed, but underneath the clothing, he was not well-grown. But I have discovered that this is what has happened. And they put it together a plan to induce themselves by altering my children's lives, teaching them, grooming them for sex trafficking. And there's been a lot of shuffling around with my children between 3 different groups and 1 woman. My second husband has a girlfriend, and she's from Alpharetta, Georgia, or she lived there with her children in a Studio 6 hotel in Roswell, right out on the outskirts of Alpharetta. And she's in the midst of this. It's hurtful because I have proof that people have seen them in the hotels here, and the police have refused to help me. They contacted Athens because I had to explain to them what the custody issue was. They called Athens and asked for a report by the social worker, whom the detective, Sergeant Baxter, I believe his name was. He refused to tell me the lady's last name, the department where she worked, and, you know, her title. Her phone number, email, no contact. He just told me Maria or Marie. And so I discontinued working with him because basically that told me that even though I'm the one that put out the police report and made contact with them, that they were excluding me, or I was blackballed, so to speak, because I have no business looking for my children if I don't have custody. But I told them that I have parental rights, and I showed them the proof. I showed them the entire website and had them to investigate. Because I looked for my children in a hotel. The police came out. The hotel called the police on me, and all I did was ask for an email. I walked out cordially, but the little Indian lady had asked for the police to show up. They bombarded me. The lady just ran up to me in her car, jumps out, jumps in front of me, like literally just 1 feet away, if that, and tells me I need to leave the property, which I was already walking away from the property. And she had told me that the ladies did not tell her that she told me to leave the property. And I said, well, if that was the case, then why are you in my face? Because if she didn't tell her that she told me to leave the property and I refused, then I had a right to be there. And I had been looking in other hotels and things of that nature, doing my own investigations with my own equipment, and etc. There's other people that have been assisting as well. But it's been identified that 4 different hotels, they saw my children in. The first one, which was a Red Roof Inn, I called the police then, and they refused to look. I told them the lady identified them there. I told them that I knew that they was there. I told them the room numbers. They didn't look. All they did was they didn't even want to give a police report or an incident report or offer a missing persons report. I had to ask the police officer for an incident report. And he stated to me that Oh, I got to give you an incident report in the rain. You know, I also got a threat from the police department that if I had contacted them again, that I would be arrested. That's Plano Police Department. Athens Police Department refuses to contact me. I don't contacted them. It's been over probably 800 times I called them in the last 3 years, and I have not concluded anything yet. I've called them several times, several times. I just recently got a call back from someone who stated that they was a lieutenant and wanted to get some information about my report. He said they'll see what they can do, but I haven't heard from him in about 3 days. And I know that they're watching everything I do. They shut down my business pages, sabotaged my business. I'm a hairstylist. And I'm a very well-known one, by the way. They sabotaged my hair business, caused my all my clients that was attached to my Facebook page, they shut that down 2 times, locked me out of my Facebook accounts. They shut down my business locations by spreading rumors to my business locations. I lost about 3 locations due to them. The last one was sabotaged big time. Big time. So they sabotaged my my small business association loan and grant. There's also employee fraud with that. And Stephen Long, my first husband, nipped it and contacted them because his name was written on the original license, but I had concluded it and got a second license and put the word new in front of it to make a second license, a new license. And he got his hands involved and caused a mess with me getting the money. And SBA just contacted me and told me that that they made a mistake because they needed something happened with them that they didn't process my paperwork. And the lady said that the other thing is that they did not process a form that they needed for IRS to verify my income because it had the wrong check boxes. Now, we talking about over a year of communicating with these people for one benefit. I'm going to shift gears and ask that you guys share my story. I'm concerned about Destiny and Jeremiah. I've received reports that my children have been drugged with meth, marijuana, seduced with cocaine, heroin even, tried to get them addicted to pills, rape, torn my daughter's limb. I'm trying to remain confident in God. These people have no idea who they're messing with. I'm telling you. I put in prayer, in and out. I'm praying for the other victims like me. And I love you, Destiny and Solomon. I intend to go all the way with my pursuit for justice. I need your petitions, your support, your prayers, anything you can do. Let's go, y'all. Like fire, let's set it off. Forget it. It's time for civil rights. Reform or war. They have done a little bit way too much. And this is the small version. It's a lot to remember. It's a lot to remember. All right? A lot to remember. And there's more information. I need to withhold a few things on their part, not mine, as they feel that I am, they underestimate me, and they conclude that I'm not in any position to be able to counter this. We need to share this video with as many people as possible. Like I told the social worker, I'm not the right one, but I'm the right one at the same time. Need I say more? The Lord has revealed to me that in this year, they have about 1 million, within a year, within 12 to 18 months, they have about 500 million children in custody of Child Protective Services that are not just African descent, but of darker color, African breed. Yes, illegally, unsuccessful relationships with parents. Anybody who is not from the place where they are, that's also another thing. They have a special code system that they use where they look for victims. We got to stop being so naive and allowing the government to rule, because these are a royal priestly-like people in their eyes. They believe that they have the supremacy, and we're actually in a slavery without knowing. We're in a slavery without knowing. So I will be imparting those videos. God is pushing me to do it now for some reason. I don't know why. Whew. I'm going to tell you what I know. They have arranged for children to be sold, martyred, cut up into pieces, broken down, sold to outsiders. Mexican has privileges, special privileges to bring folk in the country as long as they complete certain assignments. They do a lot of bartering. They do a lot of trading off children, exchange of children. They don't use the barrels anymore for the children. They completed that system. They have helicopters. They transport them by flight or water, but mainly by plane. They're getting a little bit advanced at what they do now. The people who are doing this is automatically insane. I just want to let you know. They are insane already. So you want to be careful of that. They are already concluded insane, but they work for the government, and they indicted me for mental illness, indicted me for neglect. I want y'all to take a look at our family photos on our website, on Webador, SafeSollyandDes www.webador.com. And you tell me if you think that I was mentally incapacitated, because that's the only thing that they could keep my children for, right? And also, if you look at the case plan on the first page, you will see that it was not mental illness or neglect that they indicted me for. They changed the allegations because they didn't have the proof for the first ones they made. But they tried to say that I was ill. And they went ahead and put on their checkmark homelessness. But they forced me to become homeless because I indeed needed my children to have the Section 8 in Santa Monica, California. And I indeed needed my children to have, even if I was going to the property in Athens, which I already concluded. When I met with Katie Wheeler, I had a change of heart right then on the spot. Plus, I got that voicemail message from that Caucasian lady that said that there was nothing they could do for me. But the lady had already told me, the black woman already told me to bring my document and I would get my keys that day. So her name is Jetty. At the office, that's who I was working with in Athens. I want to make a mention also that I had been receiving some comments about that type of condition due to some older reports that was made. I was being used as a spiritual medium, if you will, to help resolve a crime. And I told them that who I thought was responsible. They even put it in my paperwork for my cases that I believe that person was responsible. So about April last year, this was in 2012 when this originated, but in April of last year, 2021, the Spirit of God said, I want you to go back and review the case. So I went back to review the case, and it concluded that the guy finally admitted 4 years back that he was the person who was responsible for the crime. But I never been vindicated. And I speak to a lot of people spiritually all across this world. Y'all may even remember me from somewhere because I travel quite a bit. Not here recently. I've been stable, praying at home. This is my temple back here. But I am a minister, and I have a prophetic eye, a seer eye, and ear, prophetic ear, eye, see a prophet. And I have been ministering to people for a long time. A long time. Yeah. Even the police officers know that I'm gifted because I spot things out. I see them for what they are. And I'm telling these people about what the people are doing. And everyone is saying that I'm crazy because Athens don't want everyone to know that they lied, because they would be truly indicted for imprisonment. This is criminal reporting, which is soon. It's actually already in place. It's in place. But that's the next thing. And to Athens, whoever sees this video, right is wrong and wrong is right in your eyes. But that's not even nature, and nor is it common sense. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Period. You've had 5 years, 7, 8 months to fix your mistake. And I love God. I love you because I love God. And I hate you when you hate God. And after all that has been done, you guys resist to tell the truth, and you put things together to try to have me, my home attacked, my life sabotaged, monitor what I'm doing on my cell phones, tracking me down, obsessive with me, if you will, studying my mind and my children. Oh, that's another thing too I forgot to tell you, y'all. They study our children. They put us under studies. They study our minds and the way we think so that they can know how to win the power over us. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And I have a word for people like that. You don't have no power. We the power. Every righteous person, every righteous person is the power. And you don't have no power. You will never have no power. And if God allowed this to happen, it's so that we can have you indicted for what you've done. Period.